And now, Deep Thoughts by Brad and Gary.
Hello and welcome to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. We're Gary Seath and Brad Robinson.
And you're not.
This week on Deep Thoughts, we're talking about Mr. Mike's Mondo video. And who better to talk about Mr. Mike than our friend Dennis Perrin?
True friend of the pod. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you. And I know this is going to be audio, but I'm going to show this to you so I can bedazzle you. And I may have shown it to you before. But before we get into Mondo, I want to show you Michael's Mondo jacket.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
And his yellow fedora. If you remember that scene, I think it was either in the Holland Tunnel or the Lincoln Tunnel. It was late at night.
He's on the bike or
and they're
whatever.
going down. Yeah. He's wearing that.
Nice.
And I have it. It's in my possession, and I'll kill anybody who tries to take it. So
I'm sure there are crowds outside your door as we speak trying to break it down.
Oh, I know. I know. You can't believe the gold mine I'm sitting on here.
So, yeah, we're going to talk Mondo video. We have no preparation for this. It's just going to be a rambling dialogue. It's going to be great. We want an excuse to talk to Dennis again, which we always love.
Way to butter up the listeners, Brad. We've got nothing.
We've got nothing. Listen, I think everybody knows, the story. Maybe they don't know the story, but they know the tale of Mondo video, which is what we wanted to jump into, how it came to be, talk about it. I think a lot of people think of it as a misfire, as a failure from Michael, so we can get into that. Season 3 ends, Saturday Night Live season 3 ends. Michael O'Donoghue leaves the show, yet Lorne Michaels still keeps him in the fold by setting up this project. And as we've seen in season 4, Saturday Night Live started to try to tap into their zeitgeist a bit more with off-week programming. We already saw things we did last summer. We're going to see Bob and Ray, that special. Another one was this Michael O'Donoghue special that Lorne was going to produce and brought in. So I guess let's start the story there, right, Dennis?
Well, yeah, it's true that they wanted to keep O'Donoghue within the, as they put it at the time, family. And Michael was certainly not averse to that because, it was money. It was network television access. As he told me once, he goes, print is cold, TV is hot. And he goes, and I prefer hot forms. And so he was totally down with it. And there was a NBC network programmer, executive, by the name of Paul Klein, who ran the East Coast NBC operation. I make it sound like The Sopranos. Maybe it was. Anyway, he was a fan of O'Donoghue's. And he's the one who suggested to him, we'll give you like a late night special that will air, as Brad put it, the week, a dark week for SNL. But it still ties to SNL, right? Because there's a lot of SNL people in it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an SNL special, really. Only a much darker and perverse special, but nevertheless. And he sold Lorne Michaels on it because Lorne loved Michael, didn't want to work with him on a daily basis. And after season 3, he was like done with it. But he still loved Michael big time and wanted to work with him, but occasionally, not daily.
Right.
So they came together with this, and it was Paul Klein's idea to do a parody of Mondo Connie, which was in the early 60s, I don't know, it was like, I wouldn't say guerrilla film, but it was really, and that's with a U, not an O.
I've seen it described as a shockumentary.
Right, exactly. It had all these things, and apparently they had like real like murders and executions in it, and people eating, kittens, and I mean just all sorts of things. Of course, none of that was true, but they were, it was sensational.
Right.
And Paul Klein thought Michael could pull this format off, like do a parody of it. And Michael was like, sure, I could do that. Now, you got to remember, he's coming off of the failed screenplay pitch called War of the Insect Gods, which was his first post-SNL project. It was going to be a feature film, and he co-wrote it with Emily Prager and Dirk Wittenborn and Mitch Glazer.
Project X. I was going to say, we should talk about that team, because it's a very odd, I don't know, at least when I look at it on the surface, it's a very odd mix of people to be writers for this.
Michael knew Emily Prager from the National Lampoon.
Right.
And Emily, who had worked as an actress on soap operas in the 1960s and early 70s, could do voices. And so she became a regular on the National Lampoon Radio Hour. And she did a lot of voices and stuff like that. Dirk Wittenborn was, and I met Dirk in his East 3rd Street apartment way back in the day. And he was, I think he was some rich kid. I don't know. It just was like weird. He's like, I don't know what he did for a living and how he hooked up with Michael. Right. I have no idea how that happened, but Michael loved him and brought him in. Now,
I think I read he actually lived, like he was his neighbor. If I read somewhere that Dirk was like Michael's neighbor, like lived above him or something.
Maybe at some point. And then, of course, Mitch
was a journalist at the time, right?
Well, Mitch wrote for Crawdaddy magazine, which was the alternative to Rolling Stone. And he wrote a cover story on John Belushi and was the first piece on John Belushi as a star.
Mm-hmm.
And this was while he was still on SNL. It was the second season, I think. And the opening of the piece focuses on O'Donoghue. Michael was so pleased with that he, of course, courted Mitch. And, of course, Mitch was enthralled to Michael. And then they became very, very close friends. I mean, very tight. Now, Mitch is a writer. Well, let's just say that he gave it his best. That's all I can tell you. And I liked Mitch. I mean, I've met him several times. I mean, he was elusive. He comes from a very elite film family. Like his father was in the film business, and I'm not quite sure to what degree, whatever it was, but he was raised around showbiz out of Miami, I think.
Yes, Miami. So I actually watched Mondo again with his he has a commentary track on it.
Oh, really?
Doesn't give you that much, but he does talk about at the premiere he's sitting next to. I thought it was maybe his uncle, he said, who had produced, I think, Mel Brooks or whatever, and was just like, ripping it apart and was yelling at him throughout the film that it wasn't funny or whatever. But anyway, so Mitch is the fourth member of this Project X. Yes.
And I think that's out of Michael's love for him and loyalty. Michael, if you proved your loyalty to Michael, he was incredibly loyal to you. Loyalty meant a lot. If he felt that you wronged him in some way or cheated him in some way, as he put it, he closed the iron door on you, and that was it. And you were out forever. But about Mondo...
Well, like you mentioned, Michael tried a couple ideas. They didn't pass. Paul Klein mentions doing this documentary spoof or satire. And so that's how we kind of end up with what will end up being Mondo Video.
Right.
Which, again, was originally created for television, which I think is one of the bigger reasons why as a film it doesn't work.
Oh, no.
Because it's meant for TV. Like even like they literally just took the TV program, which would have been maybe 50 minutes, and said, we're going to make it a movie and sell it as, the movie we couldn't show on television.
Right.
But the commercial intros, outros are still there. And
I know. I remember seeing it. I was in Indianapolis and I was one of maybe 5 people in the audience watching this. And I didn't know the backstory to it. I just watch it. And again, you're right about the commercial outros, and Mondo, after this word from our sponsors and that stuff like that, when you see that in a theater, it's like, well, wait a minute, this is for TV, obviously. And it was billed as, you're right, Brad, the TV show that can't be on TV. And Michael made a big deal to interviewers. He made a big deal about how dangerous this was, Michael in danger again, and how, TV couldn't handle it. And so he's releasing it. And then he bragged that there were riots when people watched this. Like he's Salvador Dali in Paris in 1923, when they would have like fascist French literally attack the screen with knives and cut it up. That excited Michael. So he created this whole narrative that this was happening to his film, which of course late 70s America, no one's attacking the screen with a knife. I'm telling you, it's not happening. If anything, they're walking out and asking for their money back. That's about it.
I think the whole, I think that's what Michael does throughout this piece is he tells you how dangerous and how crude and how appalling this film is going to be, far more than it actually is.
Right.
And he keeps going back to it, like coming up next, it's going to be so appalling. And then it's not. But it's that illusion that he's going to do this for you. And I think that definitely would have played better on TV than in a theater, right?
Well, the whole point of the whole Mondo, see, he was supposedly going to do a series of Mondo specials for NBC.
Mm-hmm.
And Mondo Video was the first one. And it was going to be like Mondo this and Mondo that. Mondo was going to be the template.
Right.
And then you put underneath it, whatever, Mondo Americana, Mondo Sports, whatever. And of course, it didn't happen that way. The network just said no. And when you watch it, and I watched it again yesterday for the first time in years, but just the naked, now this is 1979, naked women, harpooning whales. I mean, just all this stuff that was not seen on television. I mean, now it's like, you see it on YouTube all over the place.
Right.
So in a sense, Michael, and I'm just now making this connection, maybe it's false, but Michael, Mondo Video, in a sense, kind of predicted YouTube. I mean, you can go from one channel to another, and you've got all these different moods and all these different flavors. And that was the whole thing with Michael. He called it, I think he told Rolling Stone that he called it his souffle of trash or souffle of garbage. And he said, this is not meant to be great. It's meant to push you, poke you, get a rise out of you. Now, most people I knew when I was back in the day, they thought it was boring. They thought Mondo Video was boring. I go, well, boring. Well, there are parts that are boring, I think.
There are.
But boredom doesn't cover the whole production at all. There's a lot of other stuff in there.
There's a lot. Somebody did try to list it all back in the day. And just to give you an idea of how much stuff is in this film, there's an opening crawl and we see Mr. Mike sitting in a room holding a gun filled with rabbits. And then in the next 70 some minutes, you get cats are thrown into a pool, lingerie models in multicolored afros jump over a campfire, girls in net stockings kiss each other. Hawaii Five-O's Jack Lord is worshipped as the living god. Bare-breasted African women dance in a living room. An elephant is electrocuted. People wearing Mao masks invade a suburban home and shoot leisure items. A hand appears. Oh, God, there's so much more. A peek of Cheryl Teague's dress. Christmas on Other Planets. Dan Aykroyd appears as a celebrity with webbed toes. I mean, there's just so much shit thrown at the wall.
Right. And that's why I don't say it's a comedy. I always thought it was a very Dadaist production. It was going for sensation, not laughs. When people say, well, none of it is not funny, I go, well, it's not meant to be funny. Well, I mean, parts of it are funny.
I was going to say parts of it are definitely funny.
There are. What's Michael's quote about comedy? Like the lowest form of comedy is laughter or something. What's this quote like that?
Making people laugh is the lowest form of comedy.
And I think that's very much on display on this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. That's how he felt. I mean, Michael believed he was like a comic philosopher.
And the SNL people obviously are big fans. As you mentioned, Aykroyd's in this, Bill Murray's in this, the women are all in this, Paul Schaefer shows up. So there's definitely, it's funny. I wanted to ask you, has he ever talked about him as a director in this? Because we've always talked about Michael O'Donoghue as a writer. And I think he's a great writer. But I have to say, I think he's a horrible director. And I wonder, and he never did it again. He never directed again after this. No. And did you guys ever talk about that? Him as a director?
No, we didn't. No, I didn't. I never talked about being a director. I know Emily Prager, which is in my book. I quote her in my book. Emily Prager, who's probably one of his 3 closest friends when he was alive, said that Michael had no business directing Mondo Video. He didn't know what he was doing. They had to bring in Bob Tischler to help with lighting, editing. Michael didn't know what he was doing. Mm-hmm. Dirk Whittenborn even said that. He says Michael would have these endless takes, and it was just like, I think we got it. No, one more, like he's Kubrick or something. And he's not Kubrick, not even close. I mean, I love Michael to death. He's one of my heroes and one of my friends. But he was not a good director.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, that wasn't where his talent lay.
No, totally.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did he become the director on this, Dennis? Was it something he wanted to do? And
Well, that was part of his deal.
he just,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they just went for it.
I mean, when he was on SNL, he clashed with Davey Wilson, the director of SNL,
Sure.
constantly over the way his pieces were lit, over the way his pieces were cut,
Right.
whatever. And that post-dated Mondo Video when he came back in 81, because Davey was still the director.
Still
right.
And who got fired? Was it Davey or Michael?
Exactly.
So, I mean, who's going to go?
Right.
But he always said, well, I could do this better.
Yeah.
Give me the megaphone,
Yep.
and I'll show you how it's done. Well, they gave him the megaphone and they gave him the director's chair. And he's like, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fake it till you make it. That's what he tried to do.
Yeah. And the producer's chair. I mean, this is all Michael, I guess until Bob comes in to try to save, this is all O'Donoghue. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it was NBC trying to keep him in the corral.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know that Fridays offered him to be the head writer?
Oh, really?
Oof.
Yes. And he turned it down. Obviously.
Yeah.
John Moffat, he offered, when Fridays began, he offered O'Donoghue, like, we'll make you the head writer. You can do whatever you want, which makes sense. You're a ripoff of SNL. Why not get one of SNL's greatest voices to come over? It's like jumping, leagues. It's like the old NFL, AFL. You got to jump to the Rebel League. And of course, Michael turned it down because Michael thought it was penny ante bullshit. He was into big stuff.
Right.
At this point, if he were younger, he probably would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But by this point, he was like profiled in magazines. He'd had done Mondo Video and all this stuff. And he had a 3-picture deal in Hollywood. So why would you do the fuck knows Fridays?
Right.
It would have been interesting had Michael taken that gig, would it not?
You didn't see the original version, like what was submitted to NBC, the TV version, did you, by any miracle?
No.
Because as you guys both said, that there are funny and amusing pieces in this, but there's just so much it gets lost. By the end, when I watched it, I was like, if this was like a half-hour show or even an hour show, I probably would have dug it much more. Trim away some of that fat, which is basically what they added. They had to go and find more material. They added a Mr. Bill show to make its running time. I was just curious if I do think it would play better smaller. You just trim a lot of that extra stuff.
I totally agree. I mean, it was overstuffed for such a thin premise.
Right.
Again, there was some great stuff in it. I love the spot things like gig guns, groceries, Nazi oven mitts, boom, boom, Japanese models bathing in dolphin blood, and it's just like boom, 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 boom. If it were more like that instead of longer pieces, maybe.
Well, and I think some of the longer pieces worked. Like from the very beginning, the cat swimming lessons in Amsterdam. Like I liked that the premise of that was this is happening in Amsterdam. They have a whole cat safety program to prevent cat drowning. That to me really spoke of like, oh, that's O'Donoghue, like putting a little button on it and then turning it into this absurd thing.
Well, the cat swimming school was not popular with the Project S team at all. Dirk Wittenborn just said, look, we liked it on paper, but once we did it, it went on
exactly
and on and on. And Michael actually used one of his own cats.
Yeah, I think Mitch had said in the commentary that first cat or one or two of his cats are in there because he mentioned some huge cat that's in there swimming. Yeah.
Cow.
Yeah.
Cow. Anyway, and Dirk plays the swimming instructor.
Right.
Dirk Wittenborn plays the swimming instructor. And it's amazing because that's not a piece you could do today. Again,
no,
I'm not going to do a podcast, but if I ever did, it would be called "You Can't Do That Today," and it would be like a review of all the things you can't do today.
Right.
Which, as time goes on, piles up more and more.
But again, like this, I mean, what you said, right? The premise was there, and it went on far too long.
Way too long. And I don't know how much of that was for the movie, and they just kept extending. There's like a long music sequence. But
well, Dirk said that Michael just loved watching one of his cats swimming in slow motion. There's that one
yeah.
scene where cats like swimming in slow motion.
Yeah.
He thought it was beautiful.
Oh God.
That's what he thought. And he's the director and the producer, so
Well, that's
right.
That's the thing, exactly. And they do a funny joke at the end where they say it's also somehow connected to the hang gliding school. And they go and they look over the edge of the high rise and they cut deleted by the network or whatever. And like, that funny joke if it just came sooner.
And there's some cat that hits the pavement and he goes, oh, well,
right.
Good thing he's got 8 more lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some gems in there.
Oh, I totally agree. Recently, they've had Mike Myers on as Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mike Myers, who is a student of SNL comedy. I think he's a brilliant comic mind. He said the phrase in one of these cold opens recently, somebody had hooks for hands. And I thought, oh my God, that's Dan Aykroyd from Mondo Video, word for word, where Dan Aykroyd's playing, the preacher for Jack Lord.
Jack Lord.
So good.
And he's giving this sermon, but I saw Mike Myers say hooks for hands, and I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what he's referring to. I'll bet you $1,000 he got that from Mondo Video, because he said exactly the way Aykroyd said it. And I know he's a student of the show, and he's a student of that generation of comedy. So in that sense, Michael's influence remains,
Mm-hmm.
I suppose, on some level, on a very subtle, unknown level, but.
I thought that was a funny bit too. I liked Dan as the preacher.
Oh yeah,
preaching to Jack Lord is the Lord.
Yeah,
they're in Hawaii. It's it's clever.
It took me a little while to realize that everyone in the congregation were wearing Jack Lord wigs. It wasn't until like literally the very end that I realized they were all wearing black wigs on their head.
And Paul Schaefer. Paul Schaefer wears a wig.
Paul's playing the keys. Jane's in the crowd, right? She's the one that is in the.
Emily is the one who falls out. She's the one on the crutches.
She's the one who falls down.
Emily Prager.
Okay. Yeah.
Emily Prager. Yeah.
She looks like Jane. There's another sketch where they're doing the one of the ones I liked. It was actually would have been a fun runner again, like on a TV show. The what was it? The Brawl 2000, Laser Brawl 2000.
Laser Brawl 2000. That was a great runner.
Yeah, like the very first one that Mitch Glazer's the guy outside the store where Michael bought. Anyway, why I bring it up is Emily Prager is the woman around the table, and the first time I saw it, I thought it was Jane as well with the wig. I was like, that's Jane Curtin, but it was Emily.
No, it's Emily.
Yeah.
And of course, my late dear friend Brian McConaughey plays the director of Laser Brawl.
That would fall under your podcast of things you can't do today.
Oh, you kidding?
Here's a sketch just to have women shaking around in their bra and panties.
And shooting lasers from their tits.
And shooting lasers at it. Well, you know what? You mentioned Mike Myers, a student of, is that not very similar to the fembots in Austin Powers? It's the same thing.
Oh,
exactly.
Totally. Yeah. Actually, now that you mentioned, I really haven't thought about it.
That was the first thing that came to my mind when I saw that. I'm like, that's the Austin Powers fembots right there.
That's the fembots. Yeah. Holy shit. You're right.
But no, it's funny. It's like Brian's out there in the field with a field researcher, and was it 4 or 5 women stripped down to their bra and panties and start firing lasers into.
And that footage was on screen for a while of the women undressing.
Of course it was. Of course it was. That and the footage of the women in their bikinis jumping over the fire for some unknown reason as a sketch, and that's all it was.
Yeah, Laser Bra was another reason why NBC didn't run it.
Yeah.
They thought that was offensive. They hated Cat Swimming School. They hated Laser Bra.
Mm-hmm.
They hated all the stock footage of African women being topless and dancing around.
With Pat Nixon.
Yeah.
Now, I love that. See, again, that's like found footage. And it fits the premise.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah. And I think they went back and found more of that when they had to pad for time to make it a feature. I think Mitch had said they went and just found some of the bad animation stuff. They just bought that footage.
Yeah.
And there's that old timey news footage. I think they said Schiller found that for them, and they just recorded voiceover of that stuff to just, pad.
Well, and Schiller did Uncle Si and the Siren. Yeah. Which he found. I mean, and of course Schiller, Tom, is great. I mean, he knows all that stuff like the back of his hand.
Right.
I mean, and that's an actual provocative silent film. Yeah. And they ran the whole thing. Again, padding, right? Let's just run this silent comedy with tits And, it fits the Mondo theme. See, Michael, that's the whole point. He would throw anything into it. Again, the souffle of garbage, souffle of trash. Just throw whatever's in. And he told me, the show could be funny, the show could be weird, the show could be boring. It doesn't matter. We're just stuffing it in. And then he also said, he goes, it's only American TV. It's nothing to take seriously. And he's right.
The one sketch that I think I like the best, and I think is the most well written, that maybe hurts from Michael kind of doing everything, the directing of it all, is there's the Cafe No American.
Mm-hmm.
That was the one thing I could see on Saturday Night Live, with the American family who goes to a French restaurant and they just insult them, and down to the very end of like the table flambe where the maitre d' lights the table on fire. I think that was a very well written piece.
Well, that was Michael.
Yeah.
That was Michael's piece. I mean, the whole thing with giving them phone books.
Yeah.
That's one of his things. Because these are phone books. Well, what do you care? You can't read French, you stupid American pigs.
Yeah.
And then all of the dishes that are offered on the menu, that is totally Michael.
Oh, sure.
I mean, what was it? Minced dolphin lung loaf, moths in wine, brandied kittens,
rabbit pellets at one point.
Yeah, glazed rabbit pellets.
Yeah, and there's the one entree where he explains the entree and he goes, and then the chef takes a whiz on it.
Mm-hmm. Chicken in a mask. That is about as Michael as it gets. And you're right. That might have, it might have gotten on SNL. How the studio audience would have reacted to it is up for grabs. I have no idea how that would work. Of course, that would be back in the 70s when people were more open to that kind of humor. So,
yeah. I think that one could have worked.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's a lot of other things that could have worked on SNL.
No.
Well, you know what? Some of it was just so quick, too. Like, there's great little one-liner gags. Like, there's a bit where there's a bunch of guys lifting weights and it's Kate Smith pallbearers. Like, there's just so much quick shit.
Training camp.
Yeah, that goes through.
Marcel Cousteau, the swimming mime.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
That
right.
was funny.
Man drowning.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other one I like is they show some party. I think it's in Mexico or something. And he goes, many of these men have eaten human flesh. More on that later.
Yeah.
I like the American Gals Who Love Creeps thing. I think is another instance of
that's another one NBC hated.
Good idea.
Oh,
it just went too long. It just was. I think there's too much to it.
It was filmed in Michael's apartment, most of it.
Oh, really?
I mean, he got a lot of names in that. Margot Kidder, Jane Lorraine Gilder there.
Debbie Harry.
Well, he did in Margot Kidder. Debbie Harry and Chris Stein of Blondie were friends of his because he would go down to CBGB's and watch them perform. I mean, Michael was really into punk rock and new wave. And, he and Nelson brought Fear onto SNL. So,
Speaking of Michael and music, Dennis, can you please try to explain Party Doll Lounge and Root Boy Slim and the Sex Change Band?
That's my least favorite part of this show.
Okay.
Because Root Boy Slim, I don't know what his trip was. Boogie Till You Puke was the song.
Right.
It's late 70s New York City. I could see him playing some bar or some small club. He might have done CB's. I don't know. The party dolls, the inflatable sex dolls, well, that's just a Michael thing. He did that on SNL. He did that with Ralph Nader.
Right. Yeah.
So the party doll, sex doll thing is a part of Michael's arsenal.
It was more the Root Boy Slim I just couldn't figure out.
No, it was horrible.
Okay.
And for some reason, Michael liked them. Or maybe he owed somebody a favor, some producer a favor. or maybe they thought, I don't know. There are many backstories to this. I just don't know.
Right.
It feels like there's a lot of meat left on the bone here. Things that either were too quick, like you were saying, Brad. We know there was a lot added just to pad it. But there are, a lot of things that I feel, I don't know if they were half-baked necessarily, or maybe not all the ingredients were there. It's just there are a lot of ideas he put in here.
Well, I'll tell you some of the stuff I liked.
Yeah.
I liked Sylvia Schickman doing this poem, The Meaning of Mondo. And Michael took this off of public access, New York cable. I love that. Actually, I love like the little things. should smoking be allowed in mental institutions?
Oh, the interview stuff. That was fun. Yeah.
And these are real people.
Mhm.
These aren't actors
Right.
or comedians, which added to the verisimilitude, if you will, or the unreality of it or whatever. But the woman, the woman who talked about it, I thought was really heartfelt. I mean, it was really, when I rewatched it yesterday, I was like, my God, what a sweet soul this woman is. And the thing is, Michael didn't make fun of her. You know, it's like, should we do this? He goes, oh no, those poor darlings, they don't know what they're doing. They'll burn down the building, you know. And the way she was, she says, Merry Christmas, everybody. And she has this smile on her face. And it's very, very sweet. So, and again, that's a different mood. That's a different thing. I mean, unless you're like completely callous at heart, how can you not tap into this woman who's genuinely being asked a question and she genuinely answers it in a very sweet way? I just thought that was wonderful. And I'm glad he included it. He did a bunch of those with a lot of these people. Then, of course, you know, the Japanese thing, of course, they had Leo Yoshimura in it. So, you know, they had some people, you know, who were pros. But for the most part, these were just on the street interviews. And again, you know, pre-YouTube, pre-public access, or around the time of public access. What I also love is Klaus Nomi.
Yeah.
Who was a German singer, avant-garde performer, who, as I know you know, on the Martin Sheen SNL from the 5th season.
We're going to see him soon, yeah.
Yeah, sang back up to David Bowie. Bowie loved him, obviously. And again, another flavor. You're just watching this. And what I loved about it is that it looked like, now there were no iPhones back then, but it looked like it was taken by somebody's iPhone camera.
Yeah.
It was very rough, and it was in the audience, and you could hear the audience like whooping and hollering. And again, just a different flavor. It was nice. That was one of my favorites. And also, let's talk about Mitchell Kriegman, who had 2 video inserts in this. The one was with the dog, who was part of the Radical Underground. It's actually a human and dog outfit. Right. That was Mitchell Kriegman. Okay. And I believe cleavage was his too, with the hand going through the cleavage. That was also Mitchell Kriegman. Now, Mitchell Kriegman is somebody, again, Michael was part of the late 70s avant-garde punk new wave thing in New York. Mitchell Kriegman was a avant-garde video artist, much like William Wegman with his dogs, only much different. I mean, he went in a whole different direction, but the same kind of thing, like black and white video, rough looking. And I just love that Michael included him in it. And of course, Mitchell got on Gene Domanian's show thanks to Michael as a writer and filmmaker. He made a couple of things for SNL before he got fired by Gene. And I think there was Andy Aaron. He did like the found footage. He did one with Tom Davis on the SNL thing, where the building collapses.
Oh yeah, when Tom hits the wrong button.
Right. Yeah. That's Andy Aaron. And he does in Mondo Video, he has this thing where it's like at a beach side, there's like people walking around.
Oh, at the Alcatraz thing with the cars.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like yelling like they're in a film.
Yeah.
He goes, okay, now you come in. No, keep walking. And it's all found footage.
That was pretty good too. I enjoyed that. Like that was
a little long.
That was one that I thought I was going to say that. Yeah, I thought it was good, but long. Too long for what it was. But clever. Yeah. Smart.
Yeah. No,
You know, we kind of talked about, you know, the biggest hit to this being that it was TV and, you know, got bloated for film. But I wonder, and as I was watching this, Dennis, in my mind, I'm like, I think at the root of this, that what really just caused it to not work was too much Michael with not any oversight. But I wonder at the time, from what talking you stuff, I don't know if it would have worked with oversight. I don't know if he what he would have done with, you know, like a producer who would have been like, no, we need this X, Y, and Z, do this, form it into this, because we've been saying, there's tons of elements that work, but I think he was just left too much to his own devices. And so that's why it got sprawling. And I don't know if he could have worked that way with somebody really guiding the ship that wasn't him.
Well, yeah, Michael was given too much freedom on this.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only one saying this.
Right.
and he didn't know what to do with it. I think there were parts of it that he was in over his head, but he was too proud to admit that.
Mm-hmm.
And because he thought, this is it, this is my shot. They're giving me a whole 90-minute show on my own in the SNL slot.
Right.
I'm going to bang it out. Now, as we're talking, obviously that didn't happen. I mean, it never aired. But he thought, as he put it to George Trow, he's going to ride this one to shore. This is going to be it for him. And it's going to lead to a Hollywood career, which it kind of did. I mean, briefly. I mean, Hollywood was really interested in him because of the SNL connection, because, again, this is the original cast, original show. They wanted to capitalize on them because of Animal House, Blues Brothers, anything to do with the original show. And who better was attached to the original show than Michael? I mean, So when you say that if he had pulled back on camera on Mondo, I mean, maybe. I mean, aesthetically, creatively, maybe. But there was no way that was going to happen.
Right.
And because this was created to go in that SNL slot, he wanted to make it different too. Right. And you can see that stylistically, the types of bits that he was trying to get on.
He said this was the future of video comedy, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And in a sense, he was right. Again, I mean, eventually this kind of stuff, you can watch it now. I mean, not Mondo Video per se, but like fragmented imagery, cut, doesn't make any sense, whatever sensation you've got. And these aren't even people who are professional humorists or writers or performers. These are just everyday average people who try to be creative, want to be creative, and they do this kind of a thing. I just started a Substack column, which will premiere, listen to that, which I will start posting next week. And I'm going to cover that aspect of it. And
nice.
It's going to be about comedy and politics and pop culture, whatever jazzes me at the moment.
Nice. That'll be fun.
Well, I'll let you guys know.
Yeah. Looking forward to it.
I guess not to end it on a downer note, Dennis, but I think in the book, you kind of mention this is kind of Michael at his peak, right? He never kind of achieves this again, this total control, doing what he wants. You mentioned Hollywood career, but he's fighting to get screenplays. And this was kind of the summit of Michael O'Donoghue.
This was his moment, actually. Before we go, because I wanted to mention this, the ending of Mondo Video, where he's on the island of discarded fads.
Yeah.
There are different levels to this piece. I just watched this morning. I saved it for this morning before we taped. And there are several things. One, Garrett Morris's contention that Michael was racist. I never got the impression that he was racist, but he did play with racist notions. And I think Garrett didn't understand. And that was because Michael wrote a piece called
The Tar Brush?
Tar Brush, thank you.
You know what? But I've heard Garrett talk about that actually in like a positive way. Talks about he and Michael had this idea and they wanted to make this comment and they couldn't do it.
Really?
Like he and Michael wrote it together and Garrett actually was behind the idea. I'll have to find the clip for you. I've seen him in an interview.
Okay, well, that'd be great. I got the impression that he didn't like it because it didn't run. I mean, it got to table read and maybe just Lauren shut it down. Maybe Lauren thought it was too racist or
maybe
too on the edge. But the ending with the fads, everything, and it like the black people who act like children, essentially, who are like going crazy over hula hoops and lava lamps and all sorts of shit. Now, on the one hand, it's a parody of disposable American pop culture. It's introduced, you absorb it, you dispose of it. What's the next thing? So where does all this disposable culture go? It goes on this island. They just dump it. And these island people like, oh my God, lava lamps, mood rings, and they're like cavorting and everything. And I suppose the piece is saved by the fact that they killed Michael at the end of it. They put a spear through his chest and he lies dead while one of his bunnies hops around in the sand. The end. Now that's the one thing about Mondo Video I love. The way it ended is very much a Mr. Mike thing. They killed Mr. Mike. The end.
Yeah.
Because it really was like he's lying in the sand. They pull up. The end.
Bunny Rabbit hops out of his pocket and scoots away.
But the thing is, and he used a line in that when he gets the spirit, he goes, "Mr. Mike, are you okay?" And he goes, "Are you hurt?" He goes, "Only when I laugh." And that was a line he used in the National Lampoon. He did a piece of a guy who had a spear through his chest, and he goes, "Is there only when I laugh?" So Michael was always known to reuse his material, and he did there.
Dennis, thank you so much for talking to us about Mr. Mike's Mondo Video. This was fun, as always.
I hope I have brought some light into your lives today.
Oh,
absolutely.
Yeah. It's always fun to talk to you.
Next week, on the early years of SNL, we'll be talking about Season 4, Episode 12, with host Rick Nelson and musical guest Judy Collins.
Ricky Nelson. It's Ricky Nelson, Gary. Ricky Nelson.
It's Rick. He's older now.
Not in my book.
Until then, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow. Thanks for listening to the Not Ready for Primetime Project. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, please take a moment to rate and review the project wherever you find us. You can also drop us a line to let us know what you liked or didn't and what else you might like to hear in the future at nr4ptproject@gmail.com. And lastly, you can find us on social media everywhere at nr4pt project. The original music for Deep Thoughts is provided by Jacob Spiewak. The announcer is Jason Taylor. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Is that the end of the show?